Hi everyone, welcome again to the VC Gallery Live Watch Party. Okay, today, as we're still on lockdown, we're going to look at doing another Van Gogh painting that he did when he was in the asylum. Now, we're looking at this. This is a view of the church from Saint-Paul-de-Mausole. Excuse my French accent. Now what I'm going to do is my own version of this, Caerphilly Castle. So what I'm going to do is carry on just painting as if I'm doing this in the studio on my own. Okay, so if you can't keep up with me, you can always watch the video back later. First of all, what I'm going to do is put a ground on the canvas. Now looking at this, I would say this is actually done using a very, very limited palette, possibly even just the primary colours. Now, it could well be that Van Gogh was in a similar position to what we are at the moment, and he was very short on materials, so he was just using what he had to hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and mimic the way this was painted. This is the primary colours that I've put down. I would have said he probably used a kind of a sienna instead of what I'm using here is more of a magenta. So I've got cadmium yellow, that's cobalt blue, and magenta, and of course white. I'm going to start off by putting a ground down. As you can see, I've got another one of my recycled canvases. This came from a car boot sale for 50p. And what I've done is I've just given it a light sanding so that the paint's got something to stick onto, because it may well have been varnished. And I'm going to put down on this a pale yellow base. So I'm going to use mostly white. And because I'm so short of white paint at the moment, I'm using a pot of masonry paint that I use for my murals. So I'm going to start by putting the white on. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow to it. This paint I'm using, it's very much like emulsion, so if you do get really stuck, it does mix fine with acrylics. I'm not worrying about getting too much of an even coverage because of the way the brush strokes are done in this painting. You're not going to see any of this by the end of it. There's a ground put down. Looks quite patchy, but I'm not worried about that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a rough guide of where the horizon's going to go on this one. So here on the one that Van Gogh painted, he's got quite a high horizon line. I would say it's probably 2/3 from the top of the paper. So I'm going to try and do the same on this. So this is going to be coming, my original painting is the opposite way around, it's 2/3 from the top. I'm going to do it 1/3 from the top. So I'm going to have more of the lake showing at the bottom where he's got the fields. Okay, so if I give myself a guide, I'm just going to draw straight into the paint. This paint's still wet, but I'm going to just draw straight in with some blue paint and give myself a guide for the castle. I'm actually mixing the blue and the red together to give myself a slightly darker colour. I'm just going to give an indication of where the castle's going to go, and I'm going to do it quite high up, so it comes up to about here. So that's where my castle's going, and then I've got this this flat part across here, which is about there, and that goes across to here and then down, and there's another part of the building there which comes down like that around here, comes down and across there and in front. Now this hasn't been printed out very well. This was actually, I don't know if it was heather or something, but it was really a bright pink. That's why I chose to go with the magenta rather than the sienna as in Van Gogh's painting. So I've got a lot of pink across this bit here. So I'm just going to give myself a guide for where the magenta's going to be. That will be in this area here. And that goes all the way across. And then I've got just a small row of more shrubs here. So I'm going to mix the yellow with the blue to get a greeny colour. And that will be kind of around here. Giving it just a rough. Okay, so I've got myself a rough outline there, and now I'm going to start filling this in. Now this is, if any of you did the Starry Nights painting, it's done in a very similar technique. Lots of small brush strokes. So this is going to take a long time to actually finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the technique to start, and then I'm going to finish this off camera. So I'm going to start with the sky, and so we're going to start with blue at the top, I think. Might add just a little bit of white in it. So I've got the blue, and I'm going to do, in the sky I'm going to do the directional strokes coming at a diagonal angle, a bit like Van Gogh has, so it almost looks like it's raining. So they're going to come in like this, and you need to do this across the entire sky and really keep building it up. Using different mixes of these colours together, so you can add some of the blue and get quite a pale, some of the blue to the white and get quite a pale blue there, and then start using that, add a bit more white. Don't worry about going over these original lines because they're just guides to give you where the building is going to be. Gradually adding more and more white to this. So what I'm going to do is keep it quite dark at the top and then gradually fade it down in the sky down so it's more yellow here. So down from the bottom we can start adding some yellow in. Which is pretty much the same colour as the background. So I'm going, there we go. More mixes. You could even put a little bit of the magenta into the blue and even yellow as well to make it really kind of a dark colour. So we've got really dark at the top here. Okay, so that you don't get bored watching me do this, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the water in next. Okay, so now when you paint water, generally the water doesn't have any colour. So what you usually see in the water is a reflection of the sky. So if you are doing water, and on the original painting I'm assuming this was fields here, this isn't water, but if you're doing a, say, Pembroke Castle or something with the water at the bottom, we want to do it the opposite way so it looks almost like a mirror way of the sky. But instead of doing these strokes coming down this way, I'm going to do them with the ripples of the water, so they're going to follow this way. So again, I'm going to do longer strokes here, just so that it looks more like water. Again, building it up, adding a bit more white as it gets so you could keep building this up for a lot longer than this, but I don't want you to bore you to death by you watching me doing the whole thing. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start filling in this main part. Now, we'll do more work on this afterwards, but I'm sure you don't want to watch me just filling the whole thing in. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to block in the buildings. Now, the way Van Gogh did them, he's used blue and white with a little bit of yellow, I think, on some of the buildings, reflecting the sunlight. So I'm going to use because my picture was a lot more, I wanted to have a lot more red in it, I'm going to use the magenta to fill mine in. So I'm going to go back to a big brush so it's done a lot quicker. I'm going to mix magenta with a bit of white. I'm going to put a little bit, so I'm going to put a little bit of blue in it, just so that it's not too bright. And then we're just going to fill this in a little bit more blue, I think, here. A bit more white, a little bit more blue. Right, I've got a bush coming up here, so I'm not going to fill this all in behind the bush. Leave that with the background coming through. Following the vertical strokes of the building, as you can see a lot of the brush strokes actually inside the building. So if you put some more, try not to blend the paint too much. So we've got like there. And then what we've got here is the mound. This is a grassy bank here. So I'm going to use yellow and blue for this. Now with this, I want the mound to look like it's coming down. So I'm going to follow the line of that mound. As you can see, when Van Gogh does his hills, he follows the contours of the hills. So when it comes down, his brush strokes come down. When it goes across, they kind of go across more. So I'm going to do that with this mound of earth at the back here, coming down like this. Using blues and yellows. And then I'm going to put this bush in here. I'm going to use, for this one, I'm going to use the magenta with the yellow, so I get kind of orangey colour. You can see I'm mixing these together. And when he does bushes, you can see on here that he's kind of like done them as leaves, almost, just so that you're seeing all the little individual marks of the bush will make. My light's coming in from this side, so all the bushes are darker down on this side, and then there's a shadow coming through. So I'm going to add blue into it to make it darker on that part. So down here it's quite dark. When you want to make really dark colours and you've got a very limited palette, it's best to mix them kind of all together, and you'll get almost like a dark brown if they're mixed in the right quantities. More bushes going across here. Coming through here. Really small. So it's quite important to look at your mark making. Try and get different textures in for different, so the buildings are quite smooth and like one brush stroke down. The leaves on the bushes are lots of small strokes. The sky is kind of medium length strokes, and then the sea is, or the water is kind of long ones as well. And then the other thing he did was put outlines on. So I'm going to just show you quickly how to finish this off. Although it's not actually finished, I'm going to do a lot more work to it. I'm going to use the blue mixed with the magenta so that my colour's quite dark. And I'm just going to outline these buildings. So we've got like an outline there. It comes round and down. And then we're going to have another line along the bottom of the building. So I'm going to carry on working on this. I'm probably going to put a little bit of reflection in here as well, so that will be using the magenta. So I'm going to stop the live watch party now and carry on with this so you don't have to get bored watching me. So if you can all have a go at this, whether you copy the original or whether you do your own view is entirely up to you. I have put on the VC Gallery page a kind of outline version of this, so if you don't want to paint it, you can just do a colouring in version if you'd rather. So, hope you're all staying safe and not getting too bored at home, and I'll see you next time. Bye!